So my thing is that I'm very aware of infinite possibilities. And the thing is, when you in the quantum world, you already know that you can decide what to think about, and then you take an action according to that, right? Universe is a projection of your consciousness, right? And you are inputting into the universe by projecting your consciousness based on your beliefs, based on your intention, based on your thoughts, based on your memory. You don't realize that we are interconnected species. We are not just interconnected within our own layers of physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. We're interconnected with everybody else. Nothing is ever blocked unless you want to keep dialing the channel that is blocked. If the door is shut, it's because wherever you're going, it's not aligning with you.
Shehnaz, how on earth do you combine your job, your full-time NASA job, with coaching and all of that stuff? You either don't sleep or you're very, very efficient.
Yes. And I think that it helped that in my case, I was always thrown a lot of responsibilities, especially when I came to States, right? I had to learn to speak English. At the same time, I was learning engineering. At the same time, I was married to a man that I didn't know. So when you do things that are multi-layer all the time, it kind of becomes easy to kind of almost like jump, like, like basically you're shopping for different reality, and you're basically shopping for different timeline, and you're doing that within a day in a way, because time truly is to trace each other into material existence, but time was not meant to be the driver. Time was meant to be the tool. The problem we are running into is that human beings have forgotten that there are multidimensional species, and therefore they focus on only one task, like a DOS prompt at a time. And then what happens is that they're not really able to recognize the fact that they have so many different facets. Not only that, we have a tendency that you may be working in your day job, and in your heart, you may be wondering about something that happened with your lover, right? But you're not going to address that because you're like, no, I'm going to just do what. But you don't realize that we are interconnected species. We are not just interconnected within our own layers of physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. We're interconnected with everybody else. So when you're thinking inside something sad while you're pretending to be at work, you are still broadcasting the message to everybody else that you're not feeling good. And it's going to come out one way or the other. So the point is that I understand all of that, which is the main reason I can do it all.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yes. Well, okay. Look, just give us a little bit of background to that. You were born elsewhere. Forgive me, I forget where. You came to LA in an arranged marriage. Take it from there.
My background is that I am originally from Karachi, Pakistan. I came to America through arranged marriage. I studied electrical engineering at UC Irvine in America. And then from that point on, I started working on projects that were unique, that were very state of the art, because for me, that was my quest, was to work on projects that very small amount of engineer works on. So it started with the satellite phone, then International Space Station, then Future Combat System, then ground-based mid-course defense, then Space Launch System, and Falcon 9 rocket. And right now, I'm currently working on Human Landing System, which is all about landing on the moon, the dark side of the moon, and start living on the moon. So that's what I'm currently doing. So that is my engineering career. Along the line, of course, I've been raising 4 boys, and they're very interesting species, I have to say, because they are all so different. And one of my sons was born with the cerebral palsy, which I was given a very, very negative prognosis at the age of 7 months when I learned about his condition, is that he will not be able to walk or talk or have any kind of normal life. And I took that as kind of more like that I'm not going to make that assumption, and I'm going to do my best to raise him as best as possible. And he is right now currently enrolled in the school to become a meteorologist, even though his temporal lobe is damaged and right hemisphere is damaged and his MRI looks pretty messed up. So the point of the story is that, I've kind of like gone through my life in a way so that I can do what I think is right. And I haven't been listening to everybody else's understanding of how my life should be.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, brilliant. I love that. Independent spirit is fantastic. Okay, so you wrote a book, The Quantum Being, a self-sustaining and magnificent human craft. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's interesting because the timing of that book was very interesting. It had to be converged because you can have a desire to do something, but you need a trigger to make that desire to become a reality. And for me, in the year 2022, multiple things happened. One was that because of the COVID, we were all working remotely. So that was perfect for me because I had more time to do my personal projects. Secondly, that was the year, first time my oldest son, the one I mentioned, was able to go to university to pursue his future. So for the first time, I was not on 100% mother mode on. So I became I was like becoming to get to know myself. So that two combination gave me an opportunity because I knew that I had to write a book one day since the day I came to America. And when I share my story with people, they would always say that you need to write a book because there's so much inspiration there. So 2022 was the year when I decided, it was December 2021, when I said to myself that I have a perfect opportunity to make this book a reality. I created a schedule like a project engineer. And then in the January 2022, I gave myself a certain deadline. And I knew that by my birthday on October 2022, the book has to be published. So I made sure that I did the reverse based on that. And October 9th is when I published my book.
Oh, excellent. Such project management. That's extraordinary. Discipline. You see, this is interesting because that's an example of your extreme discipline. But we know that you're also incredibly spiritual. And some people, or you have a spiritual understanding, you have a deep spiritual aspect to your life. Some people don't relate discipline with spirituality. How does that sit with you in the work that you do?
Right. And I think that partly because they don't acknowledge all of their other attributes. Because to me, like you can't, like if I would have not taken care of my other things, like let's say while I'm writing a book, I had so many emotional things that I had to address with my son. I also had to at the same time, do a lot of research mentally to make sure that I'm doing best as an engineer to bring something to everyone that I personally think that there's enough data, so kind of making that credible for me, right? Because I'm a scientist also, so I had to make sure that I dig into the science aspect of it. So the point was that when I was writing that book, even though I had to manage the schedule, I also had to manage that I want this book to be multifaceted. Like it had to, like my first 4 chapter explains that how someone like me who was not even meant to go to school ended up becoming a rocket scientist. So I did that in first 4 chapter, and then the remaining 8 chapters, I basically am sharing everything that I learned by going to many mystery schools and by learning life with all these excitement. And at the same time, what I'm doing is I'm explaining people, like I'm giving them a recipe. And I even have an exercise in the end of every chapter. So my goal was to pretty much do physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, even in my book. So my book is not just something that you're going to be stimulated because you're reading it and you're like, oh, wow, a one-dimensional. It's going to affect you at the multidimensional level because I kind of coded it that way because that's how I live. And that's what I'm all about, which is why all my teaching revolves around that. So I think the point of the story is that the reason I was able to do that is because I'm aware of it.
Okay. And actually, this multidimensional facet that you've talked about in several of your answers, this explains how you so naturally relate the Newtonian aspect of cause and effect into the quantum realm, where most often people, when they talk about quantum, the quantum realm, the quantum foam of possibility, things like cause and effect really kind of just they'd say like, well, it doesn't happen, it's not the same. But you seem to manage to integrate it into the thinking. Can you tell us a little bit about how you do that and what's going on there in the two layers, if you like?
Right. So because I integrate into my thinking, I'm always very much available. Plus, I'm an engineer. So that combination really helps because it's a very solution-oriented mindset. So for example, like I always know that if one thing does not work, then another fork opens up because nothing is ever blocked unless you want to keep dialing the channel that is blocked. Right? If the door is shut, it's because wherever you're going, it's not aligning with you. So it means that you need to change something within you to get to the open door. So my thing is that I'm very aware of infinite probabilities, infinite possibilities. And the thing is, when you in the quantum world, you already know that you can decide what to think about, and then you take an action according to that, right?
Yeah,
So
go
you
on, keep
have the
going.
power. So you have the power to think about something. So you can give me an example if you want to give me a problem, and just I'll walk you through it. So just bring anything, and I'll
No, what stopped me there? What really made me stop? And I think you picked up on my face, probably went completely blank. Was actually you used the expression. You made me visualize a being, a part of me in the quantum realm, right? Like, okay, so you got the physical form here in the 3D, which is all very well, whatever. And then you were talking in a way that, to me, was instantly like, yes, there's an image, a process, a pattern of me in the quantum realm. Is that how you see it?
Right. So that's what it is. So I'll give an example that's very practical, right? So let's go back to the year 2019. I'm extremely dealing with a very rare disease. Nobody can even figure out what I have. And not only that, they released me after figuring it out, but when they released me, I was in a lot of excruciating pain of trigeminal neuralgia on my right face. And I live with a son whom I'm the caregiver of, not the other way around. So you can see my options are very limited, and I'm in excruciating pain all the time. So what I did was, because I was very aware that this is what I'm going to have to go through it, but I'm going to have to integrate this pain. But what I started doing was that physically, I was making sure that I was taking the medicine the doctor gave me. I was putting the heating pad on me, right? So that was my physical action. However, emotionally, I was very sad because it was a lot of pain. But what I did was I created my own avatar who was looking really happy and beautiful. And then I would look at her and she would keep telling me that this is just a transient time in your life. And I'm right here at the other end. Basically, I'll help you through the whole steps. So basically, I was using my avatar, which was pure imagination, you can say, as my way to cope, because I didn't have another human being to tell me all that. So I had to create somebody imaginary, because see, we do have a power of imagination. So why not use that? And then emotionally, I started talking to God and everybody that can hear me, mostly non-physical being, stating that I don't want to live in pain. Mm. This is going to be my life. I would want to be done and just be transformed. Otherwise, I want the solution so I can live as more of a citizen who is productive, like who's going to make a good impact on humanity. Because I don't want to become somebody who becomes a problem. I want to be part of the solution, not the problem. So I started kind of having that dialogue emotionally. So you see, I'm working physically, I'm doing emotionally, I'm mentally imagining the persona of me that's very happy. And then spiritually, I knew that because I'm doing all of these things, I'll either die or I'll either come out on the other side.
Okay, right. So the multidimensional aspect is very clear in your thinking and all of those layers, because I was thinking that you would be talking more about, right, we focus into the quantum, and this is the way that we do that, and that's the solution, is to focus in there. But you're really focusing on life as in a truly holistic way.
Right. And what quantum does is opens the door for many, many versions of this reality. And basically, I'm only tapping into like 4 layers that I mentioned, right? But in each of the layers, you can have many ways to solve the problem. Like there are so many ways, right? So basically what it is a fractal holographic reality. You open up a branch, it has many, many, right? Branches keeps coming off. And depending on where you take the path, it takes you down the rabbit hole, of course, but that's all available to you.
Yeah. Yes. Right. So, okay. Right. So, our subscribers on this channel are quite used to me trying to explain some of the quantum aspects of reality. So they're okay. We can go in at a certain level and have a certain level of understanding.
Sure.
Okay, so look, we've got this the field of infinite possibility, and as you say, it's based on this sort of fractal patterning. But the field of infinite possibility that gives us all of these different options, when we say it's infinite possibility, it truly is infinite, but we're the ones that are limiting it. We're limiting our options that we can feel our way into.
100%, because we have to limit it to collapse it in our physical reality. So that's just the nature of the existence itself. Okay, so we have to limit it. But the thing is that what you collapse with depends on all the input that you're providing. Because your output is your collapse. That's your projection. The universe is the projection of your consciousness, right? And you are inputting into the universe by projecting your consciousness based on your beliefs, right? Based on your intention, based on your thoughts, based on your memory, the triggered memory that you're accessing at the same time, because it happens all 4 levels, right? So those 4 levels are just to make it simple, right? So at the physical level, you are basically using you're using your consciousness and your microtubule in your consciousness in the brain, according to, a scientist, right? That is the trigger, right? So let's assume that physically your microtubule is firing, right? Emotionally, depending on what you're thinking, let's say if you're thinking that you're sad, then of course you're going to think about something that's also related to that sadness, because your memory is going to trigger. So therefore your mental capacity is going to access that sad memory based on your emotion, you see? And then depending on what spiritual evolution you have done for yourself and how you process all this information, you're going to either feel sorry for yourself, or you're either going to feel that I need to get out of it. And so depend on that level of empowerment. You see, all of those things are inputting into the consciousness to project into the universe what you want to collapse with. So you're doing all of that at the speed that you can't even see or feel.
Because it's instant, isn't it? It's an instant feedback loop. And is that due to entanglement, if we want to go into that kind of...
100%, because we are all, according to a statement that was made by somebody who does human design, they actually said that Big Bang was actually when we all were quantumly entangled. Like if you believe that we came from Big Bang, right? Because that's again depends on your belief. So belief does become your foundation of your operating principles, right? So yes. And what I'm saying is that you are 100% always entangled at the subatomic level with what you're projecting. So there's no question about that, because that's why I say that if you want to know how you're doing, just look around. What have you created? What are you doing? Who's your friend? What type of, how are you spending your day?
And the fundamental launching pad for all of this is belief.
Belief becomes driver, especially depends on how much weight you put on it. But yes, because that is why, if you really think about it, right, we have such a huge conflict going on at the very mega level because of religion, right? Religion is driven by beliefs. So if you think about all the wars that's happening, it's majority because people are not agreeing on the same thing.
But on an individual level, with the ability to manifest a change, let's say in healing. So you talked about self-healing earlier on, where you with the pain, but the belief that it is the possibility of change, that must be like 90% of the energy going into the process, surely.
100%. Like for me, actually, the only reason I have made such a huge, significant changes in my life is because I never believed that what I thought needed to be was not true.
Say that again for me.
So basically, like, it's almost like you're in a very messy situation. Like I told you, being in a pain in 2019, or being in Karachi where I was told not to go to school, right? These are not a happy space for me. But the very fact that I was told all that and I was being directed in a direction that this is the reality you should create. However, the very fact that I did not listen to it, I did not buy into it, because I believed in myself more than believing in other people's version of realities, is the only reason you and I are talking right now.
Yes. Okay, so that takes us on to the idea of the self and the manifested reality that we live in. To what degree are we separate until we meet at that Vesica Pisces interaction point? What's your view on that?
I think that is kind of like, it's very much intertwined, because we are never separate, right? Because everything is interconnected based on quantum field theory, right? Right now, you and I are definitely quantum entangled, right? And we are communicating with each other. And of course, I'm dialing a channel which is all about communicating with you right now. So if you think about it, your presence is already affecting the type of reality I'm creating for me, because I have infinite number of channels to dial but I'm saying no to all of them. And I'm saying, I'm dialing a Tim Walter channel and I'm going to talk to him. So the thing is that we are 100% affected by the projection we have created in the form of people, places, experiences, processes, patterns, all of that. Now, depends on how much choices you give yourself and how much space you give yourself to actually even ask the question that, is this what I want? Right? Because if you don't ask, you can easily be busy for the rest of your life with what you've already created.
Yes, because so this is like a process of constantly asking and questioning, well, depending on where you start from, the very belief systems that have created the person in the first place. So it's like the most significant patterns of our belief system are the ones that we don't even notice.
100%, because for the most part, if you don't dial the channel of noticing it, see, if you don't want to ask, if you don't want to question the question, you're not going to question the question. If you don't even think about a question, you have no question. So it depends on, so basically it's a very interesting, like, that's why we're glued to the very universe we're interacting with at all times. And that's why it's almost like that, it's so intertwined that it makes it very hard. That's why they say sometimes that if there's a victim and if there's an asshole, right, and they're living together and they're both perpetuating that role playing, and they're so engrossed in that role playing that they don't even see that they're actually doing that.
Right. Yeah. And I mean this. So look, I mean this way of thinking, which again, let's just repeat this. You are a scientist. And I don't mean to sound surprised by that. What I mean is, you're a scientist with this view of life that is now proven, or certainly is a strong hypothesis for the way the reality functions. Right now, the change, the fact that it basically is turning objective reality right on its head. Because actually what we're saying is there's a huge input from the subjective that has a worth that science up to this point really has gone, well, no, hang on, that's subjective. We're not interested in that. But really what you're talking about is the power of the subjective interaction, right? It is, isn't it? Is that
100%? Because and that's why I'm saying that if you surround yourself with people, because people, all the experiences that you're experiencing, it's continuously hypnotizing you to some extent, okay? Because you are kind of like in that self-fulfilling prophecy feedback loop. So yes, so that's why, like, if you ever want to look at everything from a forest perspective, you're going to have to make a little bit of an effort to go where I go, right? But then, of course, there's a balance required. Like, you don't want to always be questioning your life. You have to live your life too.
100%.
Right? So yeah, that is the dance. That is the quantum dance I use as a word. Is like, of course, we're supposed to do that, because my kids sometimes says, Mom, I know that you love to talk about life, but can we live it? And I'm like, yes. So my boys say that. They're very smart. And they just, I said, okay, let's have some fun. And then we completely get lost in like doing something that we were laughing and we have completely forgotten. So of course we want to do that, because we didn't come here just to question everything, but we are just having a little balance problem right now in the world.
Exactly. But part of that balance problem is because we are at this point of understanding and seeing the true nature of what we are, isn't it? Don't you think? I mean, it's globally, that's what we're being affected by, because we're in this state of chaos, which is really a healing process.
100%. The very fact that my next level soul interview has given me so much visibility is because people are ready to have a conversation that I love to have. And that to me is already a pretty amazing sign, because I've been living this life, right? Doing this quantum dance and doing whatever I can to show up the best version of me. And now I think it's time that people are like, oh my God, we would like to know the recipe. And I'm like, well, I love to give you the recipe.
Yeah. Okay. But the implications for society as a whole are immense. I mean, because again, it's not just you. Your work 100%. Is amazing, because I've got to just add this, because the thing is with you, Shehnaz, is that you actually communicate these very complex ideas so well that it's like, oh, of course, that's what it means. That's what it's, so it's brilliant, because there are people like Donald Hoffman talking about this interaction and this dashboard that we, interact with. But my God, he gets a little bit heavy with it because that's who he is, and that's fine. But you do it with this lightness of touch, which is fantastic. Now, but what I was going to say was this, the significance for society about what you're saying and about what Hoffman's saying, about what Penrose is saying with his microtubules and all the rest of it is
Exactly.
immense. It's
100%. Because it puts the responsibility back on you that you're triggering everything that's happening to you. You're inputting in the consensus reality. You're not just completely somebody, like you're definitely a conduit. You see my point? So when you take that tiny responsibility of being a conduit, you're not going to have that victim mindset.
But also, and I think I felt this certainly last year. I have trouble in relating the individual awareness into the collective, which is probably why I live here. As I said, I'm a hermit. But because the enormity of, if one thinks about the enormity of the scale of the collective, 7.5 billion souls or whatever it is, interacting in that way that we're talking about, what difference does it make what difference does it make with my reality? But I think I've just had an insight. But over to you on that one. How do I affect the collective?
Well, you're affecting the collective because right now you're talking to me, right? You are going to publish this interview. You are basically sharing your opinion. You're sharing all these things. So you're affecting the collective because you have decided that you're going to affect the collective by showing up on the YouTube channel, right? That's your one mechanism. But that's your one mechanism. Now, let's say if you don't, so you're saying you live away from human physically, so you're not directly interacting with human, right? So you are, because, in your case, but even that required you to get there, right? So the fact is that you've created a lifestyle where you feel more comfortable, that physically you don't want to interact with humans, but you want to interact with them through the screen. That's pretty much what it boils down to, is that you've decided that I like to have a little more space between me and humans, because when they're right in my field, they affect me a little too much. So let me create a barrier. And not only that, I'm going to make sure that we're going to show up only professionally. We're going to only do it for 1 hour at a time. You see the point? You created all of that because you want to have a space. And it's okay because, you have to be healthy in how you want to show up.
That's really interesting, because it is exactly, it's all about headspace. It's all about headspace.
That's exactly what it is. And the fact that you have a luxury to create that for you also means that you are able to navigate in this game of life, because, that's what it all boils down to, right? Whatever you want, I think you are completely deserving it. But how do you create that? What path you take, what intention you drive, and how many people you mess up in the process, all of that affects what you create.
Okay, right. So how much attribution do you, or contribution do you, where does the ancestry line play in all of this, right? Because go on.
They're playing on it because partly, your DNA, right? It's connected with your DNA. So your DNA have intrinsic memory and extrinsic memory. And I explained that in my chapter 11, really detail. The whole idea is that there's a memory, for example, that when you work out or when you do certain thing with your body has a memory to remember it, right? That's why your body keeps on, like when you're making muscles, right? It keeps on growing muscles. That is intrinsic memory. Then there's extrinsic memory that you access based on what channels you're dialing in every movement to movement. So all of that is affected by your heritage, of course, because, you have a bloodline, you have a DNA. All of that kind of carries a lot of information about what your ancestor did, right? What heritage you did. So there is a certain thought process. Like, for example, in my case, I come from a DNA line, which is like woman, right? I mean, at least that's what I'm playing as a woman in this life. But the point is, it's kind of like there's that connection with, the Egyptian, there's a connection with Cleopatra, like my ancient lineage is connected with all that. And then there's a connection with, like, Pakistan, for example, where I come from, even with my current memory, there are very few women who actually drive, right? So there is a certain thing, it's like, so like there's a certain thing in you. Like I do drive, right? But I'm aware that most of the women that I come from don't even get to drive, right? So there is that information pool that we all tap into based on our ancestral lineage.
But at the same time, it needn't have an effect. It needn't, because that's part of our choices.
100%. Because
Yeah.
you decide how much effect you want to take from that understanding, right? Because I can say that though no woman drives, so I should not drive. You see my point? I can easily take that position and then I can come up with lots of lame excuse not to do that. I'm just kidding, but you got the point.
Hey, we can all come up with lame excuses. That's the easy part. But when I'm trying to get people to shift their perception of their ability to interact with the field of infinite possibility, I like to talk to them about the idea that they are, literally living in their own universe.
100%.
Because that was going to be my question. Do you think I'm taking it too far by saying that to people?
No, you are 100% right. That's why I say that everybody's watching their own movie. Everybody's watching their own movie, and whether they agree with it or not, they are pretty much the star in their own movie, because they truly are, because the only person that they can control is themselves, right? So that's why they are the star. And when people start understanding that, they're going to take responsibility for it, and we're going to have less chaos because everybody will be working internally rather than working through the external projection of reality, which is an illusion.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So look, we're made up of these whirling vortices, and that's all that we are. So does that mean that the external projection, in its atomic structure, you might not be able to answer this. Do I share the same atomic structure in my external projected reality as you do? So, I mean, literally, if we were able to say, right, and analyze the atomic structure of everything,
Yes. So it's the answer is twofold, right? Yes, part of it, yes, because we both have a certain because that's where consensus reality comes into play, right? We both have a certain understanding of that we are both talking through the Zoom channel. We do have our own computer and there's a screen, so we have limit ourselves with that because we do know we are not in person. I can agree with that. You can agree with that. That's part of consensus reality. Like, how do you feel that we are not in person versus how do I feel may have some little different variation of how we are perceiving each other, right? That's the part that gets very interesting. Like I'm sitting right now, and there are certain beliefs that comes with my understanding of that when I'm sitting, how my body is relaxed or where, I'm putting weight on and all of that. So that's part of my storyline. Similarly, you have your own storyline. So yeah, so that's how you make a Vesica Pisces, which is the consensus reality in this case.
But let's say if I was there in the room with you, would the atomic structure of the bookcase that's behind you be the same atomic structure for me as it is for you?
Yeah, so that actually, if you would be in person looking at the bookshelf behind me versus looking through the projection of the laptop, it kind of does somewhat make it different for you because you're looking at the pixelated version of the pixelated version of the pixelated version. So it's a little bit more like that you're looking at the picture rather than looking at the real thing, right? Because everything is vibrating at the electromagnetic field level. So the vibration that you're picking up while you're looking at from the laptop versus the vibration you pick up when you're right in front of the bookshelf is going to be different.
Yeah. So the actual, and because if we're saying that the reality, albeit physical, is projected and it's the illusory nature of this. I mean, yes, it's real, but yeah, we're talking about the nature of it being created moment by moment. That means that the infinite field of possibility is creating from different aspects when I observe the bookcase than it is for you when you're observing the bookcase, because also we have to take into account the fact that you're part of the infinite field of possibility, as am I.
That's true. That's true. And then also, you haven't thought about the fact that when you're looking at something, and while you're looking at it, what are you exactly thinking? What are you exactly feeling?
Aha,
What
yeah.
type of senses do you have, right? Because
Mm,
your sense will also have a different, like, if
mm,
your sense of smell is amazing, then when you're right in front of the bookshelf, the first thing you're going to do is smell the wood.
mm, mm.
All
Yeah.
of that is going to affect how you're going to perceive it.
Yeah, which is why I quite often use the example of a chef. A chef with a really refined palate can taste things that, somebody like me just no, don't get any of that. But the palate, the sense of taste, is so unique to every individual. It's all part of this whole thing. So you were talking there about, we're talking about waves of possibility, really, and all of this sort of thing, and the structure of reality around us. What got me into this whole arena of helping people shift their perspective on reality was actually something really simple, which was just the act of using a dowsing rod. Right, so you ask a question and you get a response, and the rod, probably through idiomotor effect, moves, but it gives you an effect. There are dowsers all around the world that monitor earth energy lines. Have you heard of earth energy? Do you know what I mean by that? It's sort of a little bit like ley lines.
Yeah.
So electromagnetic flows of energy, basically, which we're living in. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I tend to regard the lines that we might pick up, and there are varying widths. They can be meters wide, or just little narrow tributaries. Do say if it just is like not in your sphere of, you don't come across this. But what I tend to say is that this is like looking at the framework, the scaffolding of our informational reality that we're building, because these are flows of information, flows of energy, which is a nebulous word, is used in the wrong context in that sense. But when the person, again, this is belief system, when the person tunes into these particular vortices or lines, you can get an altered state of consciousness. So they have to be a kind of like an influencing factor somewhere along the line. But that's what I believe. So that's what happens.
That is very true. So that's an interesting example of quantum physics, right? Double slit experiment. When you
Yeah.
look at the electron, they behave differently. So it's interesting because, so there is definitely, because that's why, like, the military terminology, the recon, you've heard of recon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't believe in recon, because when you are looking at something, you're affecting it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is why I have a problem with the idea of objective reality anyway. But so, because at some point it isn't in whatever.
As soon as you interact, you have affected it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let's bring this into some lovely grounded form for our viewers, because
How can we ground it now, right? We have been all over the place. Let's come back to Earth.
But I love going all over the place. It's great. Um, you might have answered this already. If there was one particular thing that you would say to people watching this, apart from go and buy your book and read that and get on with it, but if there was one thing that you would say to people now watching this that they could help themselves do through the process that you have been talking about, what would that be, if there was one?
Is that the power you seek is the power within. Because I use my own power to keep on projecting the reality that made sense to me. I had to take a lot of quantum steps to get to the end result, but I never give up on myself. And that's what I continuously do. I believe that the problems you start having in life is when you give up on your own self, because you get distracted by the illusion and you start listening to everybody else's channel. Because remember, everybody's watching a movie and you have to be a star in your own movie.
It's this concept of we are both the story and the storyteller.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm going to let you go in a minute, Shehnaz. Thank you very much. It has been fantastic. I just want to check my notes here to see whether there's anything that really leaps out.
Yes, of course. No.
Is there anything else that you would want to particularly kind of raise or at this stage?
I think that what I would like to raise is that ultimately, we're going to have 100 monkey effect, butterfly effect, because all the things that Tim, you're doing, I am doing. The goal is that if everybody takes responsibility for their own action, for their own projection, for their own experiences, and if every one of us who are listening to this podcast wants the same thing, let's say we all want harmonious life. Let's say we all want a life where we can be more one with earth and have loved one around us, have a very people who really truly love you, right? If you all want the same thing, then we will be able to create it, because just like Finding Nemo example, where when all the fish swim down, they are able to break from the cage. And if we believe that we are in the cage of the narrative that's been sold for a very long time, then what I'm saying is that by taking self-responsibility, you're going to be able to meet with like-minded people. You're going to keep multiplying your Vesica Pisces into the flower of life pattern. And that's how we're going to actually bring the heaven on earth through our daily actions.
But if people focus on change from the point of view of you're wrong, I'm right, that isn't going to help, is it?
No, that's why integration comes in, because see, you have to learn to coexist with other people, other animal, other insects, right? It's all about coexisting, because everybody's a reflection of you. So when you run into conflict or problem, then you're going to have to, and that's my chapter 6. I explained that very well. So the whole idea is that that's when you have to know that whatever is bothering you, ultimately, you are the one that's bringing that experience to you, right? So like you have a choice. You have a choice to either move away from that person that is bothering you, or understand why it's bothering you. So hopefully somebody else doesn't come in that person's form to keep testing you, you see, because your test has to be integrated. And until you integrate, you're going to keep repeating patterns in the form of people, in the form of trauma, in the form of drama, all of that.
When you use the word integrate, you mean the process of understanding this multi-dimensional being that we are.
Process of understanding yourself, because we are here to understand ourselves. That's pretty much the reason we are here. We are basically learning about ourselves through the projection that we're creating every moment.
Which is what we might say is the purpose of the conscious cosmos anyway. It has created us to be in this dimension.
Exactly. So, and I want to make a point, because I know you use the word but, and but is only in English language. It's not in, it's in my language too. And I don't necessarily like the word. I don't even use it, because but kind of stops the flow of energy, right? So now the good thing is you use the but I explained that why there's no but, because it all ultimately still comes back to you, even if it's an experience. Like even when I went through the pain, ultimately I had to take the responsibility that I had overexerted myself. I was in a lot of stress, and I triggered my entire system to say, pay attention to me now.
When this whole idea of co-creation came about, when it came about, well, create your own reality, blah, 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 all decades ago, there was a feeling that, well, hang on, some people have created a real mess for themselves. And is it fair to say that they've created that? You've created that. How do you respond to that?
So the thing is that it depends on when you wake up from your Sleeping Beauty assignment. I have to say that, right? Like, in my case, I could have taken so many different fractal paths, right? There was one path that was given to me, was not to go to school. I would have just be obedient girl. I would have not gone to school. I would have gotten married. I would have gotten really good in cooking food and, going to parties. That would have been my timeline. And it could be that I was fine with that, and I may have figured out another way to start spreading my wisdom by opening a school or something, God knows, right? But the point is that whatever you end up doing with the choices you're given, ultimately, whether you make it good or make it bad, you are still responsible, partly because you're inputting in it. You see, like, I know that the life is not fair, right? I wasn't given a fair life by any means. But the point is that when are you going to say, you know what, enough is enough, and I want to change it? Because as soon as you say that, what I'm saying, that you have the power to do that. That's why I say the power you seek is the power within. So if anybody who's listening to this and they feel that they're in a situation that they don't like, I can assure them that they have to take that one quantum step. And once they do that, then they're going to open the door for a whole different portal that they haven't seen yet.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. What's your book called again? Just hold it up again. You've got it with you. People go out and buy this book.
So the book is on Amazon, and also it's on audio file in my voice, because Alex kind of gave me that. He's like, please do that. So I did it. And my name basically is pretty much my website. So shehnazsoni.com. I do have a couple of courses there for sale, because I create courses like life activation, light activation, and reality shopping. These are 2 courses available for purchase. Anybody wants to buy. And and keep spreading your light.
Yeah, people can sign up to your mailing list as well, and that's well worth getting that in the inbox every now and again. That's fantastic. Shehnaz, thank you very much. Maybe we'll talk again soon one day, whenever. I know you're a busy lady. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. I knew it would be.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Take care. Bye-bye.